I am live now, so I just wonder, do you have, could you just text and see if she can hear on both things? Salini, please. Sorry, I'm sure we can say her name.
The potato.
Yeah, text the potato. So I'll be here. You can turn these on. Is that the wind?
Somebody's waving now. So what do I do with this no sound?
Is that what she's saying? No sound?
No, not yet. Do I just wave so they'll know?
I'll come and talk to you. But yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. Good. It's quite fuzzy. Why is that quite fuzzy? That's a bit... Talk. You all right? Come on, just a little bit. It's very loud. You all right? Do you want me to see? Hang on, let me...
I think it's gone now. Yeah.
You're saying I'm too late?
Yeah.
Too little, too late?
Leaflet.
Leaflets are in this red bag, and there's also some stickers. And I also brought... So I can't bloody... I also... and I also got some thought crimes, and everyone can have one of these. And I thought, Iris, of doing a nice, I'm pointing at your phone, a nice thin summer scarf in those colours. No?
Yeah.
No?
I thought you
What do
were
you
going
want?
to say a phone case. That's
Oh, I can do the phone case as well.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'll do one for us because we got the same phone.
I'll do one just for you. What have you got? Samsung's?
A71.
Is it still got? Is it just now not there, but it's still there?
Yeah, sort of. No, I get like this because I know something's been in there.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, have a look. Is it a hair? Is it something else?
Look up. Nothing I can
it's
see.
me.
Yeah.
I take photos, some of which are quite nice. And I don't know where to upload them to so that people can just go and take those that they like.
Do you know what we're going to do? We are going to have probably a Christmas fair exhibition. So if you want to bring your photos.
Yeah, I will.
But otherwise, you could send them to us and we could upload them. Is it like from these events?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of these events because, for example, I got some photos of, I've got quite a lot of them, but of you and this other one with this long fur coat, which are really nice photos. I mean, I'd want them, just because they're nice. But anyway, yes, they are.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you my email in a minute.
I know you're
I'm
just
live
about to
now,
speak.
but yeah, I'll give you my email, and you could. I'd love you to send them to me.
All right. Fine,
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. What's the time?
It's one.
Okay. Hello. Oh, hi. Good afternoon. Thank you. This is Let Women Speak Police. Oh, isn't this sound good? We've decided to come here outside of New Scotland Yard because I don't know if you noticed, I think other people in the country have noticed as well, but there's this thing called two-tier policing. And it's really impacted women who want to say that women don't have penises quite dramatically from both ends. So how we start Let Women Speak is that I take my raincoat off because it's not raining. Thanks. And we say, what a day this has been, what a rare mood I'm in, why it's almost like being out. Yay! This is London, hi. Enjoy. We've got tourists. So tourists, in England, women don't have penises. Just for the open top bus rides. We are what you call right. So anyway, the reason we are gathered here, specifically outside of New Scotland Yard, is whilst I'm sure individual police officers didn't join the police force to infringe upon the rights of women, the Metropolitan Police doesn't know that. So it's not just how the police officers deal with women, specifically women who know what a woman is, but it's also the way that the police force and the police services deal with their female personnel who are subjected to quite humiliating practices where the women in the police force are expected to search male suspects who call themselves women. The women in the police force are very unlikely to have a single-sex space where they can change, where they're guaranteed that no men are in them. And also officers who call themselves non-binary, non-binary, or men that call themselves women in the police force are enabled by the police to sexually assault women. So that's why we've come outside of New Scotland Yard. But essentially, I think some women have been criminised for saying the words that I'm now going to shout, which is, no woman has a penis. No arrest, no arrest. No man has a vagina. Not a flicker. There is no such thing as non-binary. And transitioning children is profound abuse. And if the police are looking for an easy win, they could just round up the parents and the doctors who have sterilised children. That would be something we would all support. They're cheering. They haven't even heard what I'm saying. They get very excited down outside of Keir Starmer's house. Bit like those rent boys. Although they don't seem as kind of full on with the fire. So maybe they're not escorts after all. They seem like genuine citizens of the United Kingdom who hate our Prime Minister. And who doesn't? Anyway, so what we've encountered over the last few years, and I'm very proud that I am the first person to be interviewed under caution and come to the attention of the police for saying that you shouldn't castrate children. And the way, oh, thank you. Thanks, Julia. Dr. Long, always ahead of the curve, wasn't she? Always ahead of the game. That's what it is. So back in 2017, what happened to me is I got a text from some police up in Yorkshire, although from the text you couldn't tell that they were from the north. And they simply said that they wanted me to contact them about malicious communications. And I thought it was a joke, because I didn't know that that's how I contacted people, via a text. And the guy was really friendly, really friendly. He was like, you know, we talk about this at the dinner table with my kids. And he was lovely, and we talked a bit about Donald Trump, because that was relevant. And he was really nice until I got a solicitor, because I realised it was true, and I had to attend a police interview. So I got a solicitor, and then the kind of, I'm your best friend, love, that disappeared really quickly. That sort of friendly policeman, I'm on your side, disappeared, and he turned into a bit of an officious arse, shall we say. So, on the 24th or 23rd of February 2018, I went along to the police, and there was a hate crime officer there who didn't know that when you had sex reassignment surgery, they removed your testicles, which I thought was interesting. And there was another officer, and they played like good cop, stupid cop. It wasn't so much good cop, bad cop as like Dumb and Dumber. And I just did the whole interview, and this is how you do an interview with the police. You just say the words, no comment. You don't give them anything where they can get an easy caution, because that's essentially what they were looking for. That went to the Crown Prosecution Service, who sort of said eventually, after weeks and weeks and weeks, that there was nothing to answer. So why was I interviewed? Well, there were 6 tweets, and at the time, Twitter wouldn't release the name of Jihadi John, but they did release my name and address to the police, and that's how they found me. And it was fun. I did hide all my kind of computer and my phone and everything before I went to the interview, because I know that they'll come and seize those sorts of things if they so desire. Whether or not they have any legal jurisdiction to do so, it seems to be something that they will do. So I went along to the police interview, I did the questions, they sent it round twice to go to the Crown Prosecution Service. Anyway, what did the tweet say? Well, clearly they must have been something worse than maybe saying, oh, I hope that bad thing happens, and maybe it will, for all I care. It might have been something like that, which is not incitement, let me just say. If it's for all I care, it's not incitement. Lucy Connolly shouldn't be in prison. But those are child rapists and child porn collectors, which we call child rape images. They should be, but they're not, because, I don't know, just makes me think, what have the judges got on their hard drive? For all I care, is that right? If you say for all I care, that it changes the legality of what you say. Anyway, one of the things was you shouldn't castrate a child. That was criminal. What a criminal thing to say. Another criminal thing to say was that Janet Mock was a bloke. I called him Mr. Mock. That was addressed in the interview. That was a criminal thing to say. Oh, I think I'd said something about Magnum ice creams being akin to child predators who sort of said, come and see my puppies. And I said that I think mermaids were working with Magnum ice creams because they were encouraging children like child catchers. So that was criminal. Unlike sort of saying, get a free binder, that's not criminal, that's perfectly fine. Saying, shh, we won't tell your mum. Click on this little website and we'll get you some puberty blockers, that's not illegal. Selling drugs to families and blocking puberty of children and testosterone, that's not illegal. That's perfectly fine. But it is illegal to harass Islam. So don't be harassing a religion, because that's also apparently, you can be arrested for that. And for goodness sake, if you've got a picture book, don't set it on fire, because that can also be seen as harassment in this country. But if you've got a large collection of paedophile material, you might, if you're really unlucky, you might get like a 2-week suspended sentence. So, oh, and also, if you do the rapes, it's probably less criminal than if you talk about people doing the rapes. So that's how they get us, really. And then there's the flip side of it. So not only do we get our words policed, and often police film our events, not the people coming to harass us, but they film our events just in case we say hurty words about fetishy pervert men in dresses. Not only do they do that, but when we raise the alarm and tell them about harassment, sustained harassment, threats to our family, seriously at all. In fact, I've had a campaign for about 6 years against me, which I thought was going to be finally sorted this year. And then the police officer who was like definitely going to investigate it suddenly just got called to something more serious. There was a dirty misgendering somewhere. So she was called away to that. So that's kind of how they get us. The things that happen to us aren't serious because after all we are saying terrible words, so we do kind of deserve the violent threats against us. So that's one way in which they don't serve us. And we know that's because protected characteristics that the police stick to generally treat a man in a dress who claims to be a woman as a more vulnerable person than an actual woman. So that happens all the time to many of us when we report it. There is a case at the moment where somebody put a picture up or threatened to put a picture up of a journalist, right? I'm not going to talk about the finer details of that, but they threatened to put a picture up of a journalist who put a picture up of them. And that's been seen as harassment, enough to put that man back into court. Yet, when my children's photos were not only on a website, but put all over Twitter as we know what school they go to, and they started atting in my children's school to show me that not only they knew what my children looked like, but also what schools my children went to, which made me have to take the precaution of going and talking to all my children's schools about making sure that my children were only released to me, don't let them walk on or anything outside of the school. I was told that it was, I do say bad things, so what do I expect? And unless I knew exactly who that person was, what did I expect the police to do? Well, clearly do their job was the answer, but that doesn't seem to be something that they do anymore. They don't seem to investigate a crime unless you just shove it right in their faces, and then you're probably guilty of harassment of the police force, so good luck with that. Anyway, I know there's plenty of women that this has happened to, whether it's stickering, hurty misgendering, whether it's calling a pig in a wig a pig in a wig. And Kate Scotto, we know she got actually found guilty of that. And then she got found not guilty on appeal. But what she was subjected to and what Jenny in Newport was subjected to is absolutely abhorrent. And it just goes to show that the police just aren't scared that we're ever going to take action against them. So maybe now J.K. Rowling has stepped into the big money kahuna kind of kahuna, whatever, what is it? I don't know, I've had codeine. Now that she's basically said, I'm going to put my money where my very clever mouth is, maybe the police will think twice, which is a great song by Celine Dion. Anyway, I digress. Who else would like to speak? Come on. Oh, you're so diddy. Right, really nice and close to that.
Mouth.
Yeah, but still close, and then I'm just... Okay. Thank you so much.
Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Hi.
Still closer though.
Yeah. Oh, closer. Okay. Normally you mic me up.
Well,
I am
that's
mic'd
right,
up.
but this
Oh,
is-
okay. Right. Hello, everyone. I'm Jez, also, excuse me, also known as Colchester Mum, and my tweets bring all the dirty old men to the yard. Okay, so it's going to be a long and rambling one here, so I'll try and remember everything. I'm going to take you on a bit of a trip down memory lane to last summer when I was arrested by Essex Police. It's the same force that targeted Alison Pearson. But before I do that, and I'm going to draw some parallels between what happened to me and what's happened to some of the other sort of high-profile cases that have been in the news lately. But before I do that, I just wanted to take a little bit of a detour into the Northern Principles. I've been around a long time. I remember all the sleaze and stuff in the 90s. I'm older than I look. And also John Major set up something called the Nolan Principles that's supposed to govern. It's the principles of basically public service. It's supposed to apply to public servants, politicians, councillors, charity trustees as well. Remember, I've been targeted by people from 4 of my local charities, all of which have vulnerable children and adults in them. Okay, and these principles are absolute anathema to anyone who's corrupt, whether you're in the police force, the local council, or your local charity. Selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, leadership. So I've been working myself in the public sector for 17 years until last year, and I couldn't wait to get out because I couldn't put these into practice anymore. It's become so corrupt and so hollowed out. And I take these really seriously, and that's why I get targeted, because I try and hold these people to account. And boy, do you find out about it when you try and do that. Okay, so a little bit more about me. I live in Colchester, which I call the Rotherham of the South. But I am actually from Blackburn. I don't know if you're all familiar with Blackburn. It's one of the Red Wall constituencies in the north of England. The Red Wall resisted in 2019 when the Tories were elected, but it was breached in 2024, not by the Tories. It took a lot of people by surprise. The candidate that he elected stood on a Gaza ticket. And I think that surprised a lot of people in Colchester, not in Colchester, in Blackburn. Just a little bit more then, so going back to the elections last year when that happened. So this was the 4th of July last year, if you all remember. 29th of July was Southport, and like Lucy Connolly, and like all of us, we were devastated by what happened. We got gaslighted, of course, by Keir Starmer a few weeks into his prime ministership. And it upset a lot of people, doesn't it? And others of us that follow women's rights, etc., we live on a diet of, as Kellie-Jay just said, paedophiles walking free, rape, domestic violence. We have an avalanche of it in our lives every day. We see it happening. And then what happened at the end of that week was the Olympic boxing. That was on the 2nd of August, okay? And I was horrified at that. And I was horrified and I was so angry at that. I grew up with domestic violence, and that was like watching my dad punch my mum, yeah? And I did what Lucy Connolly did. I wrote a tweet that I'm usually very careful what I write because I know people watch what I write. And I make sure I always think, could I back this up in court? And the answer is always yes. I'm pretty brutal with my satirical humour, if anyone, but I always make sure I can back it up. And that day I was a little bit less careful than I normally had been. And that's what brought the police to the door, okay? And the police told me that I'd been under investigation for some time. And there'd been a lot of people. It turned out 6 people had been reporting me from the Mercury Theatre, which is a registered charity. And they'd been reporting me for some time, I don't know how long, and they'd also reported me for criminal damage, which had happened 7 weeks before the arrest, which I knew nothing about. This is the stickering. So, which I've never done. I've never stickered in my life. I spoke about that last time at Let Women Speak. So this is where some of the parallels come in. That's the Lucy Connolly one. But there's also the Julian Fulks one, the guy who had Brexity things on his bookshelves. If you get your news from the BBC and the Guardian, you've probably not heard about it like I used to. But probably you wouldn't be watching this if you do. Okay, so his home was searched. He videoed it. The police didn't allow me to video them going through my bedroom, looking for stickers that said trans women are men and free speech is hate speech. How Orwellian is that? They had no evidence to do that. They came without a warrant, yeah? My partner just let them in. They came without a warrant. They came without any evidence whatsoever. They still searched. You can see my video of my arrest online. They actually said to me, we're arresting you to put you on bail, which now I'm finding out all about this kind of stuff. It's all completely unlawful. And I've been trying to find out through Freedom of Information requests if there's any actual reports from the Mercury Theatre on the police systems of criminal damage or harassment. And, well, let's just say it's kind of difficult to get any information out of the Freedom of Information team at Essex Police. But I haven't uncovered any evidence yet that there's anything on their systems about what I was arrested for. Okay, so we've talked about that. We talked about, what about Graham Linehan? He's arrested the same things I was, harassment, criminal damage. And Roger Mia, he's been arrested a few times for whistleblowing about child safety, which is what all the stuff that I've been writing to this theatre about for a long time, about their safeguarding, respect for the law, and their incitement of violence towards women and girls through children's entertainers, which is the thing that I tweeted about. So unlike Lucy Connolly, I wasn't saying, nobody could accuse me of inciting violence. I was tweeting about them inciting violence, well, or their children's entertainers inciting violence, and that putting sexually explicit stuff on for kids. So what else? So I think the other big parallel is, you know, everyone's heard that saying from Stalin's chief of secret police, haven't they? You know, show me the man and I'll find you the crime. In my case, show me the woman. Yeah. So there's a few go-to crimes these days, and they are harassment, public order offences, and malicious communications. And they will try and fit whatever you've done to one of those crimes, and that's what they did to me as well. So, for example, Tommy Robinson, we all know he's been in prison for a long time in solitary confinement for a civil offence, and as soon as he's been released, they've now slapped harassment on him. So all you need to do is find someone who will say that they are alarmed and distressed at something that you've done, and then they can slap harassment on you. And it's the same with the guy who burned the Quran. They tried to slap on him harassment against the institution of Islam, but then they had to change it because obviously that's illegal. And they changed it to a public order offence. What they did with me, if you watch my video, they tried to say that I'd caused alarm and distress to a theatre. And I questioned that in my video. And then I went into the interview for 3 hours. They didn't mention these 4 of these 6 people were not mentioned in my interview, but they appeared on my bail sheet. And I've got my bail sheet here. And I'm going to read out their names. Why not? They've accused me publicly of harassing them. Even one of them I'd never heard of. So their names are Sean Plummer, Steve Mannix, Deborah Sawyer, Carol Rayner, Robert West, Helena Oxley. They were all trustees and staff from the Mercury Theatre. They appeared on my bail sheet afterwards as victims. One of my conditions not to post, encourage others to post any content in any social media form about the victims. Okay, I wasn't allowed to go into a whole area of Colchester, anywhere around the theatre or the land adjacent, the bars, the arts centre. Wasn't allowed to go in there. In case I intimidated witnesses or prevented further offences of which I'd been shown no evidence. But they kept me on bail for 10.5 weeks. The standard is 28 days. They released me on bail. It says released on bail is insufficient evidence to charge, but they had sufficient evidence to arrest me, but they never actually told me what the evidence was. So a few days after I was arrested, I emailed the arresting officer and said, can you tell me who these people are and what they've said about me? And the reply came back, these are people that you've copied into emails and they've seen your tweets. So not that I've tweeted about them, they've seen your tweets. So they basically phoned up the police and said, I don't like what the person's tweeting, they're harassing me. And the police went and arrested me for it. Okay, this is crazy, isn't it? What else? What other? I mean, there's just lots of stuff. But they took my phone. They didn't take any other of my devices, just my phone. They didn't tell me why. They, as I was discharged from custody, the police officer took me around a corner and said, "I'm going to need your pen." Wrote it on a post-it note. No paperwork. I handed it over. I hadn't taken a solicitor in with me. Probably should have done. So they took my phone. They never said why. They kept it for 10.5 weeks. And then they gave it me back and said, we haven't looked at it. So they said insufficient evidence, but they didn't look for any more evidence, but they still kept me on bail for 10.5 weeks. And then they gave me my phone back, and the first time I went to pay contactless, I got a message that said, check for spyware, your phone's been rooted. I've rooted lots of phones myself, and I've never rooted that phone. I told the police about messages that I had on my phone about some of the network of people who target women and children in Colchester, and including things about the police, including messages like there are people in Essex Police who would gladly hurt my children, that kind of thing. I mentioned all that in my police interview, and I emailed the officer about it. He reassured me no one had looked at my phone. Shouldn't they have looked at my phone? So this is the phone, and I haven't touched it. For all I know, it's got spyware on it, and for all I know, they're listening into this. If you're listening into this, hello, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not going underground, and I'm not going to go on Telegram because I'm not the criminal. Okay. So apparently I could have asked for my phone back. I didn't know that because I wasn't able to get any legal advice, including from Free Speech Union. Thank you, Free Speech Union. This is my other phone. This is my other phone that I've got. I've got more messages on it now because people contact me with their horrendous messages, stories, including about people in that network, that would make Jimmy Savile blush, okay? Chief Constable Ben Julian Harrington, if you want to know what's on this phone, you don't need to arrest me to take it off me. You could just ask. I've got a feeling you're not going to. What else did I want to say? I wanted to just say about going back to the Nolan principles. People talk a lot about high trust and low trust society, and that's what the Nolan principles were introduced to do, to stop corruption, etc. And people lament the fact that we had a high trust society until not long ago, and now it's turning into a low trust society. But what actually I think is happening at the upper echelons of society, we've got too high trust. People are trusting anybody. People are letting predators walk in the door because they've got a smile on their face. People are forgetting to say no. What the Nolan principles say, for anyone working in public services, you have to learn how to say no. You have to say no every time. If someone's trying to break the rules or ask for favours or jump the queue, you need to say no, and you need to say no to everyone. And that's what people have forgotten, and that's why we've now got a high trust society at the top, too high, and a low trust society at the bottom. I've got lots more to say, but I could be here all day. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Julia Long. Come on then.
Thank you.
Obviously right into the...
Yeah. Hi everyone, absolutely lovely to see everyone today. Thanks as ever to Kellie-Jay for organising, or whoever did organise, I'm not sure. Kellie-Jay. And listen, I'll just keep mine quite short, and I think it follows on quite well from some of the horrors that we heard there from the previous speaker, because she mentioned the Nolan principles. But I remember when quite a lot of us came to support you, Kelly, when you were in Trowbridge Police Station. I can't remember what it was about that particular time, but do you remember a lot of us came? It was, Brighton, yeah. And I remember on that occasion, someone told me, I wasn't aware of this, maybe everyone else knows about it, but I wasn't aware that until this very nice chap told me that whenever a police officer does their training, and then is in the, ceremony or whatever to become a constable, they actually declare an oath to, like, now I suppose it would be King and Country, then it was Queen and Country. And I just think it's worth reminding ourselves of that. As I say, maybe you knew about it already, but it was quite new to me. The more you look into it, it's quite interesting because it's based, this oath that they all have to declare, it's based on the principles set out by Robert Peel. So it goes right back to the sort of, founding of the, British police. So maybe for viewers overseas, it's quite interesting. Anyway, so this is something, as I say, that they all have to declare. I mean, I declared it myself, actually, when I proudly joined the pronoun police a few years ago. That's such a lame joke, isn't it? No one's I thought of that on the tube, and I thought I was optimistic it might get a laugh, but sadly deluded as ever. Anyway, so this is what they have to say. They say, I, and they give their name, of such and such police, do solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that I will well and truly serve the king in the office of constable with, and again, this is all quite good if you've got a bit of an ironic sense of humour, with fairness, integrity, diligence, and impartiality, upholding fundamental human rights and according equal respect to all people, and that I will, to the best of my power, cause the peace to be kept and preserved and prevent all offences against the people and property, and that while I continue to hold the said office, I will, to the best of my skill and knowledge, discharge all the duties thereof faithfully according to law. So that's what they all say that. That's what they all declare as, you know, this very serious oath. And when I hear some of those words, thinking of the examples that we've just heard, the examples, I'm sure that we're going to hear plenty more of them. Some really, oh, there's all pollen. Some, you know, really terrible affronts on individual women, deprivation of their liberty, you know, treating them as criminals when they've done absolutely nothing wrong. To add my own very humble few anecdotes to the collection, and I certainly haven't been on the rough end of this as much as, you know, some women have, but it is true that I think it was 6 or 7 years ago now, I was carted off from an event that publicised itself as inclusive and welcoming to everyone. They actually said that on their event, on their description at this Accenture event that a few of us went along to. And I literally sat there quietly, you know, looking forward, well, maybe not looking forward, interested to hear what, you know, what this event, you know, what the speakers were going to say. And then not only security, but 7 members of the constabulary from the City of London Police came and unceremoniously literally picked up my chair with me on it and carted me off. So that kind of thing, like literal, I think the visual impact of that is quite significant because it's literally removing us from the public domain, isn't it? Things like that. And then more recently, after the Supreme Court ruling, when, do you remember on that Saturday, there were loads of all these, like, you know, trans events with all the flags and placards and all their rallies. And a couple of us went along to the one in Hastings. Literally, I really wasn't even interested in saying anything, do anything. I literally just had a flag like that, one of those flags, adult human female flags, and my T-shirt on. We went along. We hadn't been there very long when they clocked us. And then this rather hefty, unlike so many of them, this rather hefty man in a, you know, he wasn't actually, he was wearing trousers, but it was like a man in a dress with a ponytail, came and assaulted me, accosted me, grabbed the, damaged my flag, ripped it, took it off me and took it to the middle of the rally, stamped on it and kept his foot on it until me and my friend managed to get it back. And I called the police then, and when they came along, I must say the second officer was a bit more professional, but the first officer, this bloke, who's obviously completely in cahoots with them, did absolutely nothing. He spoke to me with complete contempt and said, like, well, what do you expect me to do? And I said, well, I expect to be able to stand here holding a flag without being assaulted and having it ripped out of my hand and stamped upon. Oh, well, there's nothing we can do about that. You got it back. Which doesn't seem to me a very sensible kind of law, that if something's stolen from you and you manage to retrieve it, so does that mean I could go along to the National Gallery and steal some priceless artwork, but as long as they retrieve it in 20 years' time, then I haven't committed theft? It doesn't make any sense, but none of this makes any sense, clearly. So that's just a couple of anecdotes. The other thing, obviously, was about they're supposed to be keeping the peace. Now, how many of us, this is actually quite nice, isn't it? Very nice, in fact, that we haven't got these horrible misogynists bellowing in our ears, letting off their sirens, and that gormless moron, that Des O'Connor, oh, shouldn't say it. What's her name? I can't remember. Anyway, someone, I think it probably was Fifi something or other. Anyway, with her bloody whatever ding, 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 ding thing that she used to do. Like, you know, how much were they keeping the peace then when we couldn't hear ourselves think, how we couldn't, you know, speak to each other, and everyone just so, you know, magnificently carried on. But we should have the freedom to speak as we have now, without fear, you know, without fear of that kind of harassment. Anyway, that's all I have to say, and I'll hand over to the next woman.
Me. I'm the next one.
Oh.
Thank you. Cheers, lovely. In my one moment. So the other experience we have, which Julia has alluded to, is the different experience throughout the country when we go and try and have these events. And often, no matter how many times and how much evidence and how much we insist that we would actually like to be protected from rabid fetishists in dresses who want to stop us from talking, the police rarely have taken us seriously. When we went to Birmingham, quite a few women were assaulted by trans rights activists. The Birmingham police didn't really care. When we went to Nottingham, and we've had to go to Nottingham far too many times, but we had to go twice, and the last time we went outside of a police station just so we could ensure that the police would be worried about damage to their building, so they would actually come and... What the hell is that? Well, it's my silly fault. But we had to stand outside of a police station in order to be protected. When we went to Manchester were good. But the Metropolitan Police in particular and the Royal Parks Police took a really load of convincing before they decided that we were worth protecting. Brighton Police, possibly the worst. On 2 occasions they've been dreadful. And they let men follow women throughout the streets of Brighton and trap them in shops, while everyone treated it like it was, you know, it was a woman's fault, basically. Look what you did. Look what you said. It might as well be, look what you're wearing. Well, sometimes it is if you've got a nice woman t-shirt on. It's look what you were wearing. So, unfortunately, what seems to happen in the United Kingdom is there's justice that's accessible unless you have one of those vaginas. And if you have a vagina, if you're a woman, unfortunately, the 2-tier justice really works against you. And that's particularly bad if you're working class and you're a woman, because that is so bad, that pollen. I'm so sorry, everyone. That's about the worst of it. But we just have to keep taking these matters to the police. I'd particularly like somebody to sue the police force, maybe a female police officer. And the same goes for prison officers in this country who have to search men in women's prisons. So I'd like to see one of those prison officers get some backing to sue their employer. But the Metropolitan Police in particular were just so bad at dealing with protecting women when we want our right to speak. So, anyway, who else would like to speak before my throat closes over? Yes. But yes, I'd love some. Is that right? Thank you. Like nice and close to
Nice
that.
and close, very close. Good afternoon, my name is Jane Winfield. I am a trans widow. Thank you. Thank you. I want to tell 2 stories, one that reflects well on the police and another that reflects very badly on them. I'll start with the nice one first. In 2015, when the Serious Crime Act 2014, I think it was, Section 76, coercive or controlling behaviour in an intimate relationship or marriage. When that act came into force, I immediately thought, this is the moment to press charges against my by then absent, but still living, trans, then, no, when was that? No, he had just become my ex-husband. So I went to the Metropolitan Police, the local police force, and they sent an officer to my house, and he listened very carefully for 2 hours, and he said, well, yes, you have had psychological damage. You've had to consult a psychotherapist for panic attacks. There is verifiable, there's evidence that you suffered psychological abuse. And then he went away, and 2 weeks later, I got an email saying, I'm terribly sorry, but the psychological abuse from your husband, ex-husband now, was before the act came into force. It actually ended in 2006 when he walked out and slammed the door on us saying, it's true, I'm a transsexual. So the police, their hands were tied and they couldn't do anything about it. They had shown willing. The second account is much worse. Well, a year and a bit after my still husband left us and holed up in Petworth in West Sussex, he was saying absolutely nothing a year and a bit after he'd left, apart from one sentence, it's true, I'm a transsexual. This wasn't really a satisfactory explanation for the years of psychological abuse. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go and visit him. I'll take the children with me because I want protection, I want witnesses, and he would behave marginally better with their present than not. I managed to persuade him with a great deal of persuasion, 3 hours, to hand over a psychiatrist report, which was pretty much a verbatim account of what he had told the presenting psychiatrist. It was a letter to Dr. Barrett. I didn't know anything about Mr. Barrett. Anyway, after we, as we were just about to leave, one of the children wanted a glass of water, so I went to the kitchen and I started, opening the tap, and my still husband came in, followed me, and I said to him in an unwise moment, please get your hair cut. I repeated that, please get your hair cut. And then, because it just wasn't penetrating, there was no response at all, I saw that there was a small pair of kitchen scissors by the tap or in the sink. I lifted it up and I showed it to him, and he flew across the room. He seized my hand, he pushed it against the wall, which was not a finished wall, it was just bare bricks, and he pushed me against the wall, scraping my leg, tearing my trousers, occasioning actual bodily harm in police talk. And by then I was really frightened. So I took ourselves and 2 items which he had stolen from my house, back in our car to London. 3 weeks later, Sussex police phoned me and they said, we want to talk to you about the incident. We want to chat about the incident. And I said, can I talk to the local police? No, you must come to Midhurst. What happens if I don't? We'll arrest you. I knew absolutely nothing about the criminal law, about collection of evidence, nothing whatsoever. So very innocently, I thought it would be okay if I went on a Wednesday morning when the kids were in school but due to come out at lunchtime, for what they promised was going to be a 1-hour interview. The moment I arrived and parked in the car park at Midhurst, they arrested me. To say that I was dumbfounded is an understatement. I couldn't operate after that. The word chat was not used in a meaning that any normal person would recognize. Now, of course, I know about police methods for collecting evidence. Basically, they entrap you. Wait until you make a mistake and you give some kind of leverage. Anyway, the long and the short of it was that they then put me in a police car, took me down to Chichester, eventually put me in a prison cell, while we waited for the duty solicitor to be available. And I made a very unwise choice of trusting this duty solicitor, who of course knew absolutely nothing about my circumstances, my marriage. He didn't know that I was an upright, upstanding citizen, parent-teacher representative for decades, was campaigning on behalf of the NHS locally, and so on and so on. He advised me to take a caution. All I can say out of this shameful episode for Sussex police is, the hell were they doing believing the uncorroborated statements of a man who was plainly delusional? Thank you.
Thank you, they just clip off. Thanks very much.
Sorry, thank you.
I forgot to tell you the bit where I had the police at my house because I was, and I quote, untoward about paedophiles. They came to my house. My daughter's very shy, which I know you can't possibly imagine, but she is. And she was in one of my offices, and they went and asked her name, and she was quite worried. And then they knocked the front door, and I happened to have a female T-shirt on, which is great. I don't often wear my own merchandise around my house, but I happened to have it on, and they said words along the lines of, "We're here because you've made a YouTube. Do you know which YouTube video?" And I was like, "Made about 500 videos, so no, I don't know which one." And they said, "Well, you were untoward about paedophiles." And I said, and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought of all the people you can be quite untoward about, it would be paedophiles. And he said, "I'm not here to argue." And I said, "Well, I possibly am." So anyway, he looked quite embarrassed. I think clearly that wasn't really what he was supposed to say. I think I'd said that if you're a man who calls yourself a woman and you go into female-only spaces where there are likely to be girls, then you're probably a predatory paedophile. I think if you're okay about infringing upon the boundaries of children and safeguarding and women's spaces, I think you're a predatory pervert. So I think that's what I said. But he said untoward about paedophiles. And then there's the other time that I was arrested on a live stream, and that was because we'd gone out in public during the lockdown. And I don't know if you're aware, but if you talk about women's rights during the lockdown, you can catch COVID. But if you're marching for BLM, you can't. And unfortunately, we weren't along with the vast numbers of very closely together people marching for BLM. So we were contagious with our woman ideas. And the police officers, and I promise you, there's a video of it, so if you doubt just how hilarious it was, then do go and watch it. But it's Leeds in when was lockdown? I don't know, it was the year I got fat. 2020. It was one of the years I got fat. And anyway, so there's me, I'm one of the younger people, there's a lady in a mobility scooter, there's a couple of ladies that need to take chairs because they're quite like a bit older than me. And we had two police vans that came either side of where we were going to talk. And the police officer says, live on camera, because why wouldn't you? Women's rights are not political. Because we'd said we were meeting about women's rights, which gave us license to actually, you know, you're allowed to do that even in lockdown. You're allowed to meet if your reason is political. And he said, look, women's rights aren't political, is how he said it. And I think we all laughed, which I don't think made him particularly happy. But the night before, the guy from CID had phoned and he'd said, I'm warning you not to do it. He said, I'll arrest you. And I said, oh, come on then, you tease. If you're going to come and arrest me live on a live stream, while I'm still monetized on my channel, please do. It'll be very good for me, and actually it was. It certainly funded a couple more t-shirt runs. So anyway, so they arrested me. So that's I've had 5 lots of intervention by the police in this country, and I've had lots in other countries too, like being under armed protection in New Zealand, which was quite good, but that made up for the fact, well, not really, that they didn't actually bother coming out for us at all in New Zealand until I was right at the edge of not being killed. So that was good. And then in Australia, they also let the trans activists come really close. So it's a global phenomenon of not looking after women. It's not just the United Kingdom, where there is 2-tier policing. It's pretty global in that regard. But anyway, Annie, coming.
Hopefully it'll come out right.
Well, if it doesn't, just you'll be chastised and banned and ostracised from all social groups. But don't worry about it.
Right. Okay.
So nice and close to that.
Does that include knitting groups?
Yeah, all of them. So if you can hold your there, so you can speak as close to that as possible, that'd be great.
Oh, right. Okay, doke. Hello, I'm Annie. I'm the Annie16 on Twitter, but I'm not on there very often. I'm a woman. My life experiences affirm this. I'm here today to be untoward about paedophiles. Only kidding, sorry. I sorted mine out. The last time I spoke at Let Women Speak, I spoke about being abused as a child. That abuse was dealt with years later. He was arrested, charged, and that man went to prison. He was a man from the church in Oldham, where I grew up. When I was older, around 10 years older, around the age of 18, I was still living in Oldham. We didn't have a lot. We didn't have a car. I had a paper round. I was at college, but I still had a paper round. So I used to go out socialising and then get up early the next day to go and do my paper round. I'd walk home from a night out with a friend, and maybe the last bit I might have walked by myself. One night I was walking down the main road from Oldham to Manchester. I happened to be on my own at this point, dressed with stuck-out blonde hair, black holey tights, high heels, a skin-tight skirt, as I was a punk. I was well aware of the culture differences in our cultures from the people who lived mostly on the other side of that main road. So I was walking along, minding my own business with my keys in one fist, and my hairspray ready in my inside pocket, probably because that's what I always did, just in case. A car came past slowly. There were more than 2 men in the back. There were 2 men in the front. So there was at least 5 of them, probably Pakistani men in a Datsun. I mean, at the time, it was a joke that they like to drive around in Datsuns. I quite like Japanese cars myself too. They drove past very slowly. They were all leaning over each other to look out of the window, having a good gawp at me while I was walking down the pavement on my own. I thought, that's not good. I watched what they did. They went a bit further down the road, and then I saw them go to turn around and come back. I didn't hesitate for a second, not 1 second. I just flew. I ran as fast as I could run in a pair of high heels and a tight skirt. I don't even know now, I didn't even know then how I ran that fast in that skirt and them shoes. But it was just something told me to run. The way I was going to run, there were 2 long stone walls. There was about 100 yards of nothing, nobody's house that I could bang on the doors of or anything. So that's why I had to run. I ran into a gateway. It was an old folks' home. It had been a big mansion. And I saw a tree. And I thought, well, I can't hide behind that tree because bits of me will stick out. So past the tree, there was a bush, a big bush, so I went and hid in a bush. I thought, right, yeah, I'll get behind that. So I think I kind of went a couple of bushes down just to be certain. They drove past that gateway. They didn't come in. I heard them. I heard the car come. I heard them go past slowly. As soon as they were gone, I didn't wait. I came out and I went the other way, all the while ready to hide behind a car or in a garden or knock on someone's door. I got home that night completely unscathed. During this last year, good people who have been fighting for justice for victims for years have really come to the forefront of things. And because of this night has come back to me. This was nearly 40 years ago. This happened to me, and I've been kind of haunted by it more recently, because at the time I just thought I might get pushed about and messed about with. I didn't really think what could have happened would have happened. I don't think I did. I don't think that I actually envisaged that the worst thing that could happen to me that night would have happened to me. I don't think I thought that, but I just knew there was danger. I knew there was danger and I ran. So here I am today. But if I had become a victim, unlike the abuse that I'd suffered as a child, this abuse probably wouldn't have been dealt with, and these men probably wouldn't have gone to prison. It's unthinkable and unimaginable that something could have happened to me that night and nobody would do anything about it. And what the real victims have had, the actual victims of these men were prowling around. I saw it with my own eyes, prowling around at night in cars looking for prey, and maybe still today. I shouldn't have walked home alone, but I couldn't afford a taxi. It should be safe. Women should be safe. I'm so sorry for those victims. It's not something that any woman should have to bear. That kind of culture doesn't belong in Britain. It's the culture that's not welcome. And if you live in this country, the law should be equal and apply to all.
It's a bit better when you write it first.
Oh, that's very good. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, up and down this beautiful country of ours, we have victims of Pakistani Muslim paedophile rape gangs. And unfortunately, they come into the news and then they go out of the news. And then they get called, be accused of being a political football by women that frankly should know better in our House of Commons. I can't imagine finally hearing people talk about the trauma that I know that myself, not me, but that these victims and their friends and the girls they grew up with and their mothers and their sisters and their aunties and their whole communities were blighted by this decades and decades long trauma, that eventually, when the spotlight comes on it, somebody says, stop using it as a political football. I don't know, I reckon if they'd done something about it, nobody could use it as anything. There would just be some justice. Party of Women has made a political pledge that we won't stop asking for justice for these women until they've got it. And what I mean by justice is not, and I've talked about this before, so I'm going to talk about it again, so I apologise if it's dull. But we have this thing in this country of it's called a process. Oh, there'll be a process. And that often is seen as the solution to something terrible. So if one person is wronged, then you can find the culprits. Sometimes you might bother to find the culprit, and you will prosecute that culprit and they will be punished. But when it's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of victims, and thousands upon thousands and thousands of networked perpetrators, whose families know they're doing it, whose police know they're doing it, whose councils know they're doing it, and everyone turns a blind eye, what those victims get is a fucking process. And what does that process do? Well, it does fuck all. It tells a few people that there were a few people that did some wrong things, and isn't it bad? And we promise we'll do a little bit better next time. But they don't say what that means. What does better mean? Oh, well, we'll help identify abuse. Well, we know what abuse is. It's when the boyfriend trap is sat in a nice convertible car, or I don't know, a Prius, and they're sat in that car and they're the good-looking ones, and they trap those girls into thinking they're going to get something like a boyfriend. And then what they do when those girls are fully kind of groomed into that is they introduce them to their dads and their uncles and their cousins, and they might do that introduction all at once in one room. Sometimes they might be the same person. But they'll do that in one room, and those women, by that point, who are those women? Well, they're vulnerable women. They're young women. They're girls. They might be in care. They've already lived in a country and society and community who says they really don't care about them. And then that's how these boys, that's how these young men can get them, because they're already vulnerable. They can spot them a mile off. These predators know who the girls are who are going to end up drunk in a room with all their relatives to be raped. And they know that when those girls go to the police, they won't be believed, because sometimes the police are involved. So anyway, so they get a process, and they get to be told that we'll do better. But what I would like to see as justice for these women is that every single person who turned a blind eye in a position of authority, whether it's people working in the care home, whether it's the social workers, whether it's community leaders, and let me just have a break in what I'm saying. When did we start having community leaders sat around police when police are talking about issues? Like, when has that ever happened? And if it's going to be a thing, I would like to be the community leader for women. And I'll stand right next to the police with some sort of kind of authoritative sneer. And then what I'd like to do is I'd like to have some men come in and do snivelling apologies for non-crimes like that woman did whose son wrote in the Quran. The autistic boy, and she had to sit apologising with a hijab on, apologising in a community centre or the Muslim council, whatever it was, and she had to make that apology on behalf of her son, otherwise they'd have to go in hiding. And can I just tell you, there's still people in hiding who said things about the Quran in schools in this country. Anyway, going back to the process. So you just have no justice for these women. So community leaders, social workers, police, council workers, politicians, teachers, anybody who was in a position of authority who had the opportunity to report this and sort this out and chose not to. And I'm just going to say that, look, all of us here have come up against a big fat no and a brick wall when we've tried to talk about these issues, when we've tried to talk about, oh, there you go. That's like a brick wall, isn't it? When we've tried to talk about these issues, about men and women's spaces, we've come up against brick wall. And did that mean we stopped? No, it didn't. It meant that we tried to find a million different ways to either knock down the wall or go around it or go over it. We didn't just stop, which apparently is what many of these people did. It was too hard. It was too difficult. It was too hard. So they just left these girls to be repeatedly raped and tortured and intimidated and harassed. And what did the police do? They arrested men who try and speak up against it, and they make them political prisoners in this country. And I know we're supposed to mention Tommy Robinson, So I thought I would. Because if we didn't allow those girls to be repeatedly raped and tortured, no matter what you think of that man, he wouldn't have anything to do. He wouldn't have anything to talk about. The people that marched in Southport, the people that came out and protested, and clearly there were some elements of riot, but the people that came out and protested against the murder of those 3 little girls, they would have nothing to protest about if there was actually justice that was the same for those little girls as there is for someone writing hurty words on the internet. Okay, who else would like to speak? Yes, come on.
It's been 5 years, I've
Oh,
got it up now, right.
right. So really, I'm going to just give you these, and nice and close if you can.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I'll put it on your jacket. That's a good idea. There you go.
Hi, don't really want to follow that, but there you go. I'm going to read you something which from a very, very long time ago in the Pall Mall Gazette. It did an expose into the slave trade of young women and children. And when the journalist spoke to the man, he was told, of course, the girls are rarely willing, and as a rule, they don't know what they're coming here for. On how they did what they wanted to the girls, we call it the black drought, and they lie almost as if dead, and the girl never knows what's happened until morning. And when the journalist Steed said, how do you feel about this? The man said, well, what he said was, it's enough to raise hell in a person. And the trafficker said to them, it is true, although it ought to be enough to raise hell, it doesn't even raise the neighbours. And this is an article from 1885 called The White Slave Panic. The articles were called The Violations of Virgins, Atrocities, Brutalities and Unnatural Crimes, and How the Girls Were Bought and Ruined. Again, this is from 1885, The White Slave Panic. This was happening over 100 years ago. So the articles actually created an outcry, and there was a big meeting in Hyde Park, and the police and women. Millicent Fawcett, everyone know Millicent Fawcett? She was there, and in 1885 they actually raised the age of consent because a lot of these girls were 13 and under. So it was then deemed illegal to have sex with a girl under the age of 16, although you could just be charged a fiver as a misdemeanour if they were any younger than that. And also in 1885, the Contagious Diseases Act was repealed, which was any policeman could stop any woman if he suspected her of being a prostitute and search her intimately, and if he couldn't touch her genitals, he would have to look at them very closely to make sure she didn't have any venereal disease that she would pass on to a sailor or a man. Now that's a man searching a woman without her consent. Again, and that was repealed in 1885. The Alexis J report in Telford, over 1,000 girls were overlooked because of nervousness about race. The J report concluded that some institutions prioritised their reputations above the welfare of children in our borough and failed to take necessary action. They said in Rochdale that they were deeply sorry. So it's basically been 94 years after the 1885 Act was repealed. PI, everyone know the Paedophile Information Network, tried to get the age of consent lowered again to 13 in, I can't remember what year, 1979. And 34 years after that, David Cameron, which I think is probably the only good thing he ever did, rejected calls to lower it yet again to 13 in 2013. So there seems to be a problem that we have in this country with the age of consent, because it's 16 and we worked very hard to get it raised. And I just really want to point out that I'm so angry with this country and their attitudes to children. In the Victorian times, we knew that raping children was wrong. There was an outcry, there was a meeting, everybody went, everyone, yeah, it's fine, raping children is wrong. You go on Twitter now, you have to say, well, white people rape too, Chinese people rape too. You wouldn't stop someone, like, you don't go to a victim of the Yorkshire Ripper and go, well, Chinese people hit people too. You just don't do it. Why does everything have to be a balance? There isn't a balance. They're bad people. It's the rape of children. I don't care what colour they are, and I don't care where they're from. We had this, we stopped it. Why do we need to have it now? We just don't. And people need to stand up because this is not stopping. And I don't really care what you think of Tommy Robinson. We birthed Tommy Robinson with the fact that none of us had the guts to stand up. You can't have a go at one person who's the only person that's going to stand up and do it. You can't expect him to be perfect as well. He's not going to be perfect because otherwise he wouldn't have the balls to stand up in the first place. So, yeah, I just don't get why our morals from 1885 have disappeared. We have lost who we are as a nation, and we really need to get it back because we are failing our women, our children, and our young men. Thank you. Oh, and I just want to say thank you to Kelly, because Millicent Fawcett had 50,000 people and she was the working class hero that actually managed to get the vote, and she was a suffragist, she wasn't a suffragette. So Kelly, to me, is our suffragist. She's not blowing things up because she doesn't need to, because she's right.
Oh, thank you so much. That was lovely. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
You're coming to the pub, aren't you? Yeah. I just thought I'd share a bit of light relief. Oh, I might use it like that as well. Yes, we do. So this is, you aided and abetted the abuse of women. This is a police recruitment centre. Oh, I've got to talk about that. Nothing to see here. Move along, bigot, and it says, you police by consent. You don't have ours. And this is by a lovely lady that makes wonderful guacamole. And there's some testicles. And this is a recruitment. And it says, our language, mum's knickers, women's rights, crime stats, and our spaces. So. Anyway, I thought we could do a reply where we all just look over there and say boo, because when my name was said at the Metropolitan Police training, the recruits booed. So if we could just have you can say it to my name and we'll all just look that way. So we'll all imagine now we're police recruits and we're doing a little training session. Okay, so I'll be the trainer. Aren't women awful? AGPs have rights. Police are two-tier. See? How do you like it, police? So they literally, it's unbelievable, but they literally booed my name. And what do? I simply want women to have their rights and their spaces, and I don't want children to be indoctrinated into this nonsense in schools. I don't think, don't you boo me. I don't think that is something that the police, who police without fear or favour, should actually be booing. I think that is something that they should think, well, at least someone's doing it. It'll save us pretending. Who else would like to speak? Yes? I'm going to stand.
Do I need to wear any?
Yeah, you do.
Oh, hello.
Hang on, let me do that.
Oh.
You don't say no, I'm small or something.
I'm small. My name's Liz Panton and I'm wearing a POW t-shirt because I stood for Party of Women in the general election last year. And I want to talk to you a little bit about Northumbria Police. And it's a bit of on the one hand and on the other hand with Northumbria Police. So on the one hand, when we had Let Women Speak in Newcastle, they were brilliant. When we had Let Women Speak in Morpeth, they were brilliant. And they've been brilliant at every women's meeting we've had in public or inside since 2018. Absolutely excellent. However, during the election, I got a lot of flack and nasty messages and things like we all do, and I took no notice of them because you get that sort of abuse, but what the hell, everybody does. But I also got a woman sent me a message on Facebook, which was really very bad, very abusive and very threatening. I'd never heard of her, I didn't know who she was. So I looked up her profile on Facebook and saw that she was calling on people to attack me physically. Now, at the time, I got COVID and I couldn't go out doing leafleting. So the women who were helping me were going out leafleting, and they were all even older than me, most of them. And it really was worrying because this woman had posted a photograph of my How election leaflet, not a picture of me, but she posted a picture of the leaflet and said, "You know what you need to do, punch Nazis." So obviously was very concerned about the safety of the women who were leafleting for me.
They just shout transphobe.
I don't know what she shouted. So it was very worrying. I got in touch with the Newcastle Council because we'd had briefings about something called Operation Bridger. And Operation Bridger is a system the police have across the country, and every police force will have an Operation Bridger contact. And that person is responsible for ensuring the safety of politicians, but also candidates in general elections. So it went through a process. And this process was that the election people at the City Council contacted the police force, and I got a phone call from the police to find out more about what this issue was. Unfortunately, the police officer, who was a detective constable, a woman who phoned me, hadn't been briefed by her boss, who was the Operation Bridger chap. So she didn't understand what the problem was. She understood about things like malicious communications, and she said, yes, it's malicious communications. But she didn't understand about electoral interference. And this was what I was concerned about, that there'd been direct threats. I'd been told that I wasn't to go into a particular part of the city, which is where they were going to go and leaflet the next day. I also found out later that this woman who had sent the threats was the niece of the leader of Newcastle Council. So the police officer was getting more and more frustrated. And I was saying, but it's to do with electoral interference. And she said, it's not on my list, it's not on my list. And then slammed the phone down saying, email me, without telling me who to email. But also, the phone didn't disconnect. So I then heard this voice say, this stupid bitch, blah, blah, blah. And I quickly got my computer to record the conversation. So I had 11 minutes conversation of this police officer and other police officers in the office with her, saying things like, I'll go and fucking give her COVID. I punch a Nazi, yeah, I'll go and punch a fucking Nazi. And
That's incitement, surely.
I'd like to kill them all. Yeah, lovely. Now the woman who actually spoke to me, who was very frustrated, I feel for her because she was frustrated. Her boss had not told her what was going on. She hadn't been briefed. And I've got her recorded saying, I actually agree with a lot of the things that she's saying in this leaflet. But I wouldn't go out and say it in public. I wouldn't put it in writing. And this is the worry, that within the police force, that woman, she agrees with us, but she knows that she cannot let that be known because that would get her into trouble. Meanwhile, you've got the police going around on pride marches, posing with the blokes who are dressed up like dogs. Crazy. Metropolitan Police allowing people to have 2 uniforms, 2 names, 2 numbers because they're gender fluid. Now this was back in, I think, 2017, and it's actually written up when they said, well, he has to have these, they have to have this facility because with gender fluid, it can happen that just anything, the environment can make you change gender just like that several times a day. I mean, this is the Metropolitan Police saying this. It's absolutely insane. So there's this really strong thread of insanity running through all the police forces. But there are people who are sane and they dare not speak. They dare not say anything. There's an awful lot of ordinary coppers, like we know from the way that Northumbria Police dealt so well with our rallies. They were brilliant. They're ordinary people. They don't go in for this sort of bollocks. Una wants to say something. Come and join me, Una.
Have you heard of seen in the police?
Yes.
And seen in Parliament, seen in journalism, seen in HR, seen in many, many increasing number of places. It's fantastic.
Yeah, SEEN. And there is a scene in police, and we do know that there are some very sensible cops in the scene in the police. So all of that happened last June. We're nearly a year later. It's gone through a process of the professional standards investigation with Northumbria Police. And I had an email from them 3 days ago saying that the allegations have been put to the 4 officers concerned, and they have until the 15th of June, I think it is, to respond to those allegations. Now, it's going to be very difficult, I think, for them to wriggle out of this because I've recorded them saying all of these things. So I'll be very interested to see that report when it comes through. But just to say, there are good and there are bad in the police as anywhere else. Thank you.
Oh. Thank you very much. Gosh, I forgot about that, Liz. I forgot about that. When I went to a hustings and attended, oh gosh, before I had a political party, I asked the trucker known as Helen Belcher. I don't think he is a trucker, he just looks like one. I asked him a question, and then when I went to the next hustings in a small little village hall in the middle of Wiltshire, 2 police officers were called to sit at the back of the hall to watch me just in case I said words. And I happened to be sat next to, I'm going to start, can I do that? Yeah. I happened to be sat next to a man whose son had had a terrible time. He was suspected of being bisexual by boys at his school who beat him with a hockey stick really severely. And he had PTSD so acutely that he had to go into hospital. And unfortunately, whilst he was in hospital, he met a very, very toxic girl who thought that it was her duty to try and convince him that he actually was gender confused. And so this boy, once he came out of the hospital after being an inpatient in a mental health ward, decided he thought he was a woman. And so this poor family, totally torn apart, because then what happens to these families, and often we forget about the siblings that are just forgotten, but the whole family becomes a victim of like a tyrant in their own home, where everyone's walking on eggshells, and often the siblings just have to kind of put up and shut up because the parents are so acutely worried about the behaviour of this one child that the whole family is hostage to this usually quite narcissistic, troubled teenager. And so he tried to raise a question about transitioning children to the politicians, the proposed politicians at the hustings in 2020, whatever it was. And the vicar who was running the hustings totally censored the question. So that coupled with a couple of police. And then the next hustings, when I was actually trying to be, pretending to try to be a politician, but with my political party, when I came out, 2 police officers sat across the cafe and watched myself and Stella radical cartoons until I left. As if, I don't know what they thought I was going to do, like, I don't know, violence with a banana or like an ice cold latte. But they stayed there. There's this real weird thing that happens to women where our voices and our words are seen as extreme violence. And yet violence against us is not seen as violence at all. It's seen as kind of run-of-the-mill and pedestrian, as if we should anticipate and expect it just by being out. So anyway, that's my other stuff. I've got too many experiences with the police where they really haven't done their job. And you're right, Liz, it is. There are many officers, I can't imagine joining the police. I'm 45, say I joined the, I'm not, I'm a lot older. I'm a 45-year-old bloke. I've been in the police force since I was 20. I can't wait for that nice little pension. I'm really excited about that pension. It's a nice, and I can't mess it up. So when there's a new recruit that comes in who's non-binary, you have to ask on a daily basis, and I have a friend who's an inspector who has to do this. He's not going to jeopardise his pension, is he? Because if he messes that up at all, and there's no union that's going to stand for him, and anyway, you're in the police, so you probably don't have a union. But there's no one that's going to stand up for him. And then you've got to go to these training sessions, and if you don't, they record it somewhere. And maybe you don't get your promotion and you won't get your pension. So who's going to risk it? And can I just say about these scene networks? I just beg of any one of you, if you felt it necessary to join a network because you're not allowed opinions at work, please sue your employer. Please just go to the next level and sue your employer until any of you take it to that next level of I don't mean a tribunal, I mean sue the shit out of your employer. Nothing is going to change. Genuinely, it has to hurt their pockets. It has to be that they become a liability if they start not protecting women at work and their sex-based rights. So like the Darlington nurses and Sandy Peggy, who isn't she great for suing her union? I would kiss that woman if she were here, but that's exactly what we need to do. Go on the offensive. Let's not have to have meetings in secret. I know that there's police officers who are subjected to AGP fetish of their senior officers. Please sue the police force. We'll all stand with you. There's plenty of people with not particularly deep pockets, but certainly with a little spare change that they can throw at you if you actually stand and you stop allowing anybody to take it. And it is going to be, some of us are going to have to stand and weather the storm, I'm afraid. Some of us are going to have to stand in the rain in order to make sure that everybody else has some sort of cover from this. And if we don't do this, then we might still be having these meetings in 10 years' time. And by that point, my voice will have gone. I'll have sounded like I've been taking testosterone or something. In fact, I might be on HRT by that point. But we can't keep going, oh, isn't it bad, isn't it bad? No, we have to find ways of making it stop. So I beg of you, if your police force has got an autogynephile, a bloke wearing a dress to work who's decided you've all got to call him mum, please sue the police force. I'm here for that. Okay, who else would like to speak? Yes. Yes, you are. That's it. So, I might have to give you a bit of that so you're not right on top of the microphone. Okay, and I give these. Everyone at home can hear you. Thank you very much. And so, right.
Okay. I wanted to talk about non-crime hate incidents, which were invented in 2014, and my kind of near miss at getting one. They're quite worrying because it's an incident that's perceived by the victim or a bystander, so it doesn't even have to be the victim, to be motivated by hostility against a protected characteristic. So my experience is where I used to live, so not my current neighbours if they're watching, an Asian woman next door took a dislike to me, and I later found out the reason she took the dislike to me was when I first met her and I said hello to her son who was disabled, and that came back to me from the police as she saw me as rude because I shouldn't have spoke to her son because I should have known he was disabled, he wouldn't be able to answer. Well, for me, I was just smiling and saying hello to a child as I would to any other child, but that's how she perceived my behaviour. So subsequently, she reported me to the council for antisocial behaviour, and there's a pattern whereby they investigated me before they even knew what I was accused of. So the council came out and interviewed me, and apparently I was making a noise, and I said, well, I leave the house at 8:30, I don't get in till 5:30, I'm in my bed by 10 o'clock, I'm not sure what noise I'm supposed to be making. It might be that my dog barks when the postman comes, so I acknowledged that, but then she settles again. So anyway, they went next door and interviewed her, and they came back and they told me that the noise I was making was when I was leaving the house at 8:30 in the morning, I was shutting the door as I was leaving. So that was what was the antisocial behaviour. So obviously they didn't pursue it because they said it was ridiculous. Subsequently, she phoned social services. I got a phone call asking if I needed any help and support, and I said, why? Apparently I was psychotic and running around the street naked. I said, well, not to my knowledge. So I had to explain to them, you know, a bit of dispute between me and my neighbour. She then reported me to the police again, saying that I had locked my daughter in the house, and my daughter had tried to escape. She'd got into the garden, and she was really worried about her. So this time the police phoned me, they didn't come out and visit. I said to them my daughter was like 28 years of age and lived in London. The reason she was in the garden was because I was in hospital and she had come over to look after the dog, so she was in the garden with the dog. So again, absolute nonsense. And then I was sort of waiting on it. If you work with vulnerable adults or with children, you need an advanced police check. And it used to be that you got one when you started with your employer. If you didn't change jobs, you never got another one. But they changed that to you get one every 3 years. So every 3 years I have a police check, an advanced police check. So then she did the thing that I was worried she would do, and she accused me of racism. So I got a phone call. The police said they were going to come out and interview me. So I had a black officer and a white officer came out, and sorry.
I'm sorry about the pollen.
So, I'm sorry. And I asked them what I was supposed to have done and said, and they didn't know. So if anybody says to the police, investigate it, and then come out and see you, they're lying. They come out, ask you about it, and then they go and investigate it. Because they says to me, how do you feel about your neighbour? And I says, I don't like her, but it's based on her personality, not on her colour. And that we'd had some incidents, and I told them about them. So then they then went next door, spoke to her, so I'm sitting there sweating, thinking of this, because it's a perception. I don't have to have done anything. She just has to have perceived it, that I've done something. They came back, and she hadn't had any examples whatsoever of what I said or done that was racist. She just thought I was, which is ridiculous. So they didn't pursue that. And then a few weeks later, I was in my back garden and I heard her telling her son that these Scottish people shouldn't be down here, meaning in England. They should stay in their own country, blah, blah, blah. So I reported her. So this time the police went out and interviewed me. I told them what happened, and they went next door and spoke to her. And they came back in and told me she's partially admitted it. It did seem to work, and that she calmed down a bit, and I didn't get any further kind of ridiculous complaints. I don't know if they recorded a non-crime hate incident against her, because you're not told one way or another. And I went out for a meal, and in that group was an ex-police officer, and I was telling him about it, and he was totally denied this was possible. Nobody at that table knew you could get a criminal record for doing nothing wrong, for just somebody perceiving you to have done something. I think this kind of highlights the amount of time that police can spend policing perceptions and how they can be misused by disturbed people or as revenge for getting back at people if they've done or said something that they've perceived that, in a way, like I said, there was no intent for me to upset her when I spoke to her son. I was just saying hello to her son. So the Harry Mirror case was 2021, but it took 2 years before the College of Policing updated its practice. So now it's meant to be a bit stronger in terms of protecting free speech. You can still have a non-crime hate incident recorded against you without knowing if the police think there's a safeguarding risk to the victim. So the number of non-crime hate incidents seem to have peaked in 2021 at 12,000 per annum, and they're now round about 9,000, but 16 police areas have actually increased their recording. So it means that some police areas have reduced it substantially, while 16 of them have increased theirs. Imagine how much time the police would be freed up if they weren't having to police people's perceptions, which to me is an absolutely ridiculous thing. We know that trans people are told they're an oppressed minority. We know that their perception is that misgendering them is a hate crime. We know a lot of them have comorbid mental health problems. A lot of them have autism, whereby they misunderstand maybe things that are being said. And the guidance says that the victim does not have to justify it. Notice how they say the victim does not have to justify or provide any evidence of their belief. And the police officer or staff should not directly challenge the perception. Evidence of hostility is not required. So it's a bit like a cotton wool. Like, you have no idea with this cotton wool whether that police officer is going to report something against you or not, but it's an open invitation to anybody whose perceptions are off or skewed in some way or are vindictive. And the stats that come from these are absolutely worthless, because it depends on what police officer comes and takes it as to whether or not it's recorded as a hate crime. And on the way coming here, I was at Liverpool, came through Liverpool station, and there was a trans rights rally, and these people perceive themselves to be feminists, struggling for gender liberation. And what they're complaining about is saying the British Transport Police announced that trans women will be strip searched by male officers following the transphobic court ruling in April. Again, a perception. I don't perceive the court ruling as transphobic. They perceive it as transphobic. And strip searching is already a violent police power, and they use the example of Child Q, who was a 15-year-old black girl who was strip searched by 2 female officers while on her period, and they took her pad off her and humiliated her. Now, the fact she was black is irrelevant. They shouldn't have done that to a 15-year-old girl when she was at school, and they shouldn't have humiliated her. But they go on to do the usual. All women, especially women of colour, and anyone who doesn't look feminine enough will suffer from this. And it's just absolute, to me, it's like their perceptions are just incredible. And violence against women happens everywhere, from the home to police cells. The right wing again, their perception is that it's the right wing using scapegoats like trans women and migrant men to cover up the sexism that actually runs through our society. So this is a problem. To me, you should have no law whatsoever that's based on perception. You either have evidence or you don't have evidence. If you have no evidence, there's no reason for the policeman to shut your door. Thank you.
Okay, so are there any other women that want to speak? Come on. What a lovely top.
Thank you. I have a whole wardrobe similar. Hello. I was kicked out of Swansea Pride last Saturday for wearing a woman, adult, human, female t-shirt. The organiser of Swansea Pride said to me that I made him feel unsafe. He was, of course, you know, twice my size, half my age. And he actually said it happily for me into a recording that my words, that my opinions made him feel unsafe. And he pointed specifically at my t-shirt. Anyway, it turns out he is an ex-police officer as well. And he's also the regional organiser for GMB Union. And we know what the unions are like for women's rights. Anyway, the experience of the police, they came and told me to go because I was troublemaking. But what had happened was I'd asked this chap inside the Swansea Pride tent about his opinion on the verdict of the 16th of April. And I may have said men in dresses. And then a group of young transvestites and their fluffers, one of them sat in his miniskirt, freezing his balls, he must have been, even in the summer, swigging wine from a bottle, started shouting, "Fuck off, turf," at me and my little friend. She's even smaller than I. So we were naturally a bit annoyed. Then the police accused me and my little friend of harassing this group of young transvestites and their fluffers. And the policeman actually put his hands on me, which I was quite indignant about. I may even have said, "Do you realise how old I am? I've been a taxpayer for 40 years, probably something like that." But nevertheless, they had no witness or evidence of either, but they chose to believe these young transvestites with their fluffers against two little gobby turfs maybe, but nevertheless otherwise respectable women. So we got manhandled and turfed out. I will, however, give a quick plug to the second police officer, because by then my blood was right up, so I was not going to take any nonsense, and sat outside with my flag doing effectively a one-woman protest about outside the second hall. And it was because I'd been turfed out of the hall as well. It was held in like a park and in a hall. I went outside and sat on the steps with my flag, my adult human female flag, and the police told me to move, but I was quite indignant. I said, "This is a public building, I'm a taxpayer." But this, so like I said, I was in no mood to move, but this police officer was so sweet and so charming. He did actually succeed in coaxing me down, although only I made him agree to stand with me on the pavement, which is where I stood, which is good then because we got more footage. But he realised then, when he could see the Pride attendees, I suppose not specifically trans activists because they were just attendees, but there were hundreds at the event and just one little objector. But I ended up being the star turn because I think that, oh, there's a turf here. And because I was the only turf and because the drag queens, like you can imagine, were shit, they were trooping out to see me, and this sweet police officer, he did my other friend who was there, very discreetly and incognito, she could see him talking into his radio to get backup. So it was, so yeah, I personally felt quite safe, even though there were hundreds having a go at me. Anyway, if you'd like to read about my adventures, which are not over yet, it's #Swansea Pride. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it offensive if I say she was the only turf in the village? Well, I'm outside the police station if it is. Okay, what's the time? So we're going to wrap up in a minute. So all women have spoken. Did any men want to speak? You've got about 3 minutes. Yes? Come.
Thanks, Kelly.
You're very welcome. Come close here and pin these on you.
Okay.
1, 2.
Yeah.
So everyone can hear you at home.
Okay, thanks.
And just nice and closer to that, please.
Close enough?
No.
Closer?
But yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to speak for the second time at a Let Women Speak meeting. The last time I spoke, I was in quite an angry state. I'd had a couple of drinks before I made the speech, and I think I was a bit slurred. But I think I certainly had cause to be angry, or not on my own behalf, but really on behalf of my wife, over the circumstances of her being intimidated after defending herself in Hyde Park against two trans rights activists who then summoned the police, made allegations that my wife had assaulted one of them, when in fact she had defended herself, quite rightly, with what I describe as a turf dweller. She used one of these. I won't open it today, but I think you're all familiar with how this umbrella is. It was raining, so she had perfect right to have the umbrella to protect herself from the rain, but in the event, it was useful in that she could defend herself against these two attackers, who then ran to the police after the attack was thwarted. They didn't accept that. The humiliation of being fed off by a woman, I think, was too much for their ego. Even though they themselves claimed to be women, they were in fact men. Although I can understand in both their cases that a lot of people would say they're not men, because normal men do not behave towards women in the way that they did. I'll try and give you, as far as I can remember, the same account that I gave last time. The chronology is that this event happened at the end of October 2023, and my wife was told by the police there'd been a complaint of assault and they required her details. If she refused, she would be arrested, and at the same time I was threatened with being excluded from the park because I referred to my wife's attackers as perverts. The police said, "You say that again and you will be removed from the park yourself." I said to them, I said, "The men who attacked my wife are perverts," but they did not remove me from the park. And I stayed in the park, and I spoke to a couple of people who had seen my wife's incident with these two people, and one of those people is here today, and he was prepared to be a witness. As I was talking to him, I saw that the two police officers who had been summoned by my wife's attackers were sort of trying to listen to our conversation. And in fact, when they approached my wife, they had been talking to my wife's attackers for about 20 minutes, laughing and joking before they approached my wife. We had no response from the police until just before Christmas. Mind you, this incident happened in October, the end of October, and 2 weeks before Christmas, my wife received a telephone call from a PC Rawlings at Hyde Park, from Hyde Park Police Station, saying that she had to come in for an interview to discuss this allegation of assault. She refused to do that, and she had to consult her solicitor, and also had it not, how was it urgent just before Christmas to have an interview when the original incident had happened in October. They did back down. They backed down from this threat, and in fact the interview was in July of next year, 2024, January 2024, and was on a Friday, and it was just before Let Women Speak March, well, a rally at the Reformers Tree, rather. I know that you don't have rallies and meetings, when I went to the event in January, my wife's witness is known to you as Thames Pilgrim. He was approached by two police officers, one of them a sergeant. They had marched up from Hyde Park Police Station, 10 police officers, two abreast, virtually goose-stepping, and then two of them came and approached Thames Pilgrim and said that they wanted to have his details, which he refused, apparently the complainant against Thames Pilgrim was one of the people who had attacked my wife. They didn't tell him who was the complainant. They didn't tell him who the investigating officer was. He refused to give his details, and they duly arrested him, took him to the police station, and then released him when they found his driving licence on him. Therefore, they had his details, and somehow, soon after they had that information, the person who had attacked my wife and had made a complaint about Thames Pilgrim, he started harassing Thames Pilgrim's elderly parents. You know, this seems to be the police acting in concert with trans rights activists. And it's before this incident, I'd seen countless times in Hyde Park. I'd seen women being attacked by the police. Women being attacked by trans rights activists while the police stand by and do nothing. But as soon as there's an opportunity to arrest a woman for offending these people, then the police are quite enthusiastic. There's no hesitancy. They are politically captured, and really, I would hope that with the Supreme Court clarification of what the Equality Acts really mean, that with that clarification, that the police and the NHS, etc., they have absolutely no excuse for carrying on the way that they do. The law has been clarified, and it can't be clarified any more clearly than it has been already. And thank you very much. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just need to round up.
Yeah.
I just need to finish off. Okay, thank you very much. Right, I'm going to finish off with a little bit of advice. I've already given this advice, but I'm going to give it again because you need to be very, very clear. Number one, harassment constitutes more than 2 contacts. So if you want to talk about someone, don't use their name unless you're absolutely sure that you can defend what you're saying. I'm just going to give you some advice about how not to get trapped into being criminalised, number one. So if you're going to say something about someone, even if it's true, don't say it more than twice. Trans activists, whether they're nappy-wearing fetishists, or whether they're young men with an age of anything between 13 or 30, who goes by many different names, many different accounts, who has no life whatsoever, so spends his entire life trying to provoke nice people into doing things that will constitute harassment or assault. Please just ignore these people. They really, really want you to respond. The government right now, they want you to respond. Everyone's desperate for you to respond so you can surrender some of your rights. So please do not respond. If they come up in your face repeatedly, just turn away and walk away. You're not gonna win. No matter what you do, you are not going to win. The way you win is by not giving them any more narcissism assist supply, which is what they're looking for. So do walk away. The most important is if the police come and want to interview you, if you want, you can just refuse and you can make them come and arrest you, and they will have to justify that arrest under the PACE guidance. So it will have to be justifiable to come into your house. Stickers can't be justifiable. They're looking for an easy win. Never, ever accept a caution. Ever. Don't think that going to court and pleading guilty is ever going to do anything for you unless you have really good legal advice. Never attend a police interview without a solicitor. And say nothing. The most you can ever say is what your name is and no comment. So really, it's very, very serious. You don't say anything. You might think you're sounding reasonable, but what you'll be doing is you'll be putting yourself in a position where they can charge you. So don't do that. So that's my advice. But look, we are in a very, very dodgy situation in this country. Like I said, in this country, I've had 5 occasions to be talked to by the police. Abroad, I've had different experiences with the police also. Even in America, where you're supposed to have free speech, it doesn't include the right to be heard, even if you have the right to speak. So it's the same everywhere. Anyway, we will round off. So we came here to say, outside of Scotland Yard, New Scotland Yard, no woman has a penis, no man has a vagina, there's no such thing as non-binary, and transitioning children is profound abuse. If you can keep speaking the truth, knowing that someone might actually come and arrest you, then I promise we will win. If you can come and keep supporting the Let Women Speak movement, which arguably gives a voice to the voiceless like no other movement, then I promise we will win. And do you know why else we're going to win? Well, because I never lose. Oh, well done. There. Are you all right? Oh, you look so stressed.